Okay, so this is a quick video breakdown of stages of a psychedelic trip. Is it even worth me saying why you would want to take it? Okay, yeah, I guess I should have like a chart of the frequency, the chart of consciousness. But essentially, psychedelics are a shortcut to years of meditation or regular meditation, in which when you do regular meditation, you increase your what you call it, your when you do meditation, what do you increase? Your consciousness, but you increase the frequency. But there you go, exactly your vibration. Yeah. All right, so you do that, and essentially these Buddhists that live these lives where they're reclusive and they just meditate all day, they take their consciousness to the frequency of what psychedelics do. And if you live in Western world or city life, we don't have the opportunity to go and meditate as often as they do. So it seems to be even the universe is aware of that, and then psychedelics have come through. And that's essentially what their main purpose are. They let you reach such high stages of consciousness that you would reach in terms of natural human evolution of consciousness, that it lets you see what's to come in the future in the sense of this is where the human consciousness can go. Also, you'll reach certain stages of consciousness that it will make sense as to why certain entities described in the Bible, in this case angels, look exactly the way they do. It should explain why they have several faces and why they have several eyes as well. So when you do take psychedelics, I'm going to use reference LSD, which is lysergic acid, or just acid, and I'm also going to use shrooms. I will also use weed, and I will also use DMT vaguely, but essentially, and hopefully when I edit this video, there will be the chart of the frequency spectrum, the conscious spectrum of frequency. But let's say that you are on, and I'm going to use a bunch of random numbers here. Let's say you're on standard normal operating conscious frequency of 200 hertz, and then you take, in this case, let's say shrooms. Now let's say you take LSD. You take one tab, you take 100 UG, or UG, whatever it is, and that will increase your frequency of consciousness to, let's say, as high as 800 hertz. The journey, yeah, let's just say 800 hertz. Well, actually, that's a lot. Well, I'll just scale up anyways because it's all random, I guess. But yeah. Anyways, in saying that, you'll have slight visuals, so like everything will start to lose its form. You'll start to see like a film of light through the air, if that makes sense. Kind of like when you see camera lenses reflecting sunlight, and there's like a. Again, if I edit this and I do it properly, it should be, in the actual thing. What else? That is, mind you, that's just like base, like low dosage of psychedelics. Um, let's just say that you've actually been taken to 800 hertz of consciousness. What you would experience there on a low dose versus if you took too much, if you take a very high dose, like let's say 720 UG or UG, whatever it is, the come up is so high. So like the rate at which your frequency increases from like 200 to 250 to 300 to 500 to 800 and whatever, it goes up so high that essentially on the last stage you just black out. And if you increase your awareness again, the next time you take a trip and you take such a high dose, if you black out and you manage to like save some consciousness, you can be a little bit aware when you're blacked out. And when that happens, you can basically realize that your consciousness is being taken like down the hallway of frequency. So as it's going up the frequency, you're experiencing different things that your body and spirit can't take. So it just goes in standby. That's one reason why you black out. And that by the time you reach the peak of the trip, which is where like this is the frequency that the trip will keep you on for the duration of the trip before it comes back down, you'll realize that how do I say this? That now you are operating on a different range of frequency of consciousness. You're also operating on how do I say this one as well? That just the reality that you're in is going to be different. So we'll go back to the first one. So you take 100 grams or 100 micrograms, or UG, I should say. You take 100, yeah, you take one of those tabs, and everything is a bit wishy-washy, wavy. They just tend to lose their form a bit. Then you take it up, you can up the dosage, you can go to between 2 to 300 UG. And that's when you feel this strange sensation of like expansion around your head. It's almost like you have a headband, and while it's getting tighter around your head, it's also somehow expanding around the room at the same time. Um, you also get this strange sensation of, I don't want to say unity. You just feel like you're more than your physical body, and your sense of self, like what you think is you, is really starting to like shake and crumble. It's a bit like an earthquake to a really sturdy house. So I'll say that's stage two at the very least. Your thoughts expand as well, and you can think about thinking. So you could think a thought and have enough mental space in your mind, because that mind space has expanded, in this case your aura, for you to think about what you're thinking about, and if that would have an effect and whatever, like, that would affect your ego based on, could you even do that before? Are you shocked? Did it amaze you? It's just based on your own emotional reaction to it. Then you get to stage, I guess I'll say the next stage would be stage three. And this is, now we're talking 3 to 450 micrograms. This is when it starts to get fun. And I guess if you're taking shrooms, this would be the equivalent of 3.5 to 5 grams, I would say. Yeah, roughly. So up to maybe 6 grams, if you will. This is when you take it, if you take it all at once, you will typically get the strongest urge to sleep. And it's like, oh, you don't really sleep on psychedelic trips because you're wired up awake, but you'll feel like, I need to sleep, not right now, but like now enough. And as you get that urge, like, you'll just lie down. If you're not conscious enough while you're lying down, you will essentially black out. And once you've blacked out, you'll yeah, you've blacked out, and I guess your spirit goes through the ramping process of being accelerated in consciousness and frequency. When you wake up, which hopefully is within the hour, the world is just different. The walls breathe in and out. People's faces morph all the time. You get to see these, I won't even say you get to see these strange projections, but you get thoughts that they didn't even come from any thought you were thinking about. Mainly because you're kind of afraid of the new state of consciousness you're in the first place. You can think a thought and then think about thinking that thought, and you can think about thinking that thought, and it can carry on for as long as you have the mental capacity to do it. But more time, it tends to scare people when they end up in that state, rather than carrying on and seeing how far they can actually take their mind. If you're lucky, you will start to get more thoughts incoming into your mental space. And again, if you're lucky, you might be able to pick up on other people thinking about you. You might be able to pick up on other people that have you in their thoughts. It's the exact same thing I just said. You might be able to send your thoughts of yourself to other people that you know of. And in this case, the last stage before it starts to get, the next stage is just this stage even more. You get this strange sense of other people being around you, or just the presence of other consciousness. I don't want to say a ghost, I don't want to say a spirit. And this is actually exactly what people mean when they say, or me, when they say they spoke to spirits or ghosts, because that's what it is. You just feel that there's someone around you. When you have someone sitting next to you in a room, or just there in your presence, it's the weight and all the variables, the physical variables, like the light, the sound of them, that you're aware of their presence. But if you close your eyes and you didn't know they were there, to some extent you'll be able to just feel their presence. And you can feel that even more, mainly because your aura expands to about, it just expands exponentially more. I'd say between 2 times more, as little as, to at least 10 times more. Yeah. And this is where the sense of unity comes in, because you do identify with every other form of consciousness around you. The next stage after that is when you take anywhere between 500 UG to 700 UG. And then for shrooms, I guess that would be like 5 to 7 grams. This is when it gets fun. This is when it starts to get really fun. And it's scary as well as it is fun. As well as it is fun, I should say. All right, when you're actually in this state of let's say you take 7 grams all at once, you will again black out. But if you manage to wake up, or like just hold on to some consciousness, you'll see that as you got to the peak of the trip in terms of consciousness, that different entities came and spoke to you, and they speak to you in the form of stray thoughts, stray thoughts that are really long and specific. So it's not something that it led to you thinking about, like, for example, it's not like you thought about lemons and then you thought about trees and then you thought about farms and then you thought about wildlife and then you thought about how capitalism is destroying everything. No, instead you just got a very specific thought of how in a certain place in a certain time this is going to happen. And I guess you'll experience this as like a razor sharp intuition, but that is it's a very good example. You will also typically get, you'll be almost confirmed that there are different, that someone is trying to communicate with you. And it's not so much that you're so special that like an alien or a different spirit has found you to speak to, but you're in their realm of consciousness so they can see you. It's a bit like, it's almost exactly like turning a radio station until you get to the frequency of the consciousness of, and this is why the term frequency is used so much for actual consciousness. What else? When you get to this stage as well, this is where things they lose their form the most. I call it visual soup. Anything you look at, it tends to have so much kinetic energy visually, it just struggles to have its form. And it's in this state that you can realize that the universe really is a simulation. And if you have a little bit of willpower, you can actually start to form things around you to your own will, which is manifestation. And then you're literally practicing the law of manifestation there and then. And this is why magicians take the drugs they take. But essentially, what happens is that on this state of consciousness, if you're lucky, you can pick up on other people's thoughts. And again, they will always enter your mind as stray thoughts if you focus on them. You'll be aware of strange sensations around your body, which is really just the chakras that have opened up so much wider, the incoming energy, and you should be able to feel any form of like chi running up and down any meridians in your body. It usually feels like slight lightning shocks going up and down your body. Typically speaking, on this state of psychedelics, you can't even really, you wouldn't look like your normal person. You might be giddy, depending on how you react to it. So you might be very physically sensitive. You might laugh a lot. You might be very emotional because you are realizing or like opening a new part of your emotional body to an experience or an emotion so intense that, it does render you paralyzed, but to do nothing but experience the emotion. You might become more compassionate. You can see things from viewpoints you never thought you would. Back to spirit speaking to you though, you experience it in ways that I can't really describe. If you manage to close your eyes on psychedelics, usually you see the black that you see when you close your eyes. If you close your eyes on psychedelics, you see these really intricate patterns. They're these geometrical patterns, and hopefully if I edit this properly, then I don't need to describe it because it should be on the video. And these patterns are a world in itself, and it seems to be that some of these patterns are alive and that they exist in a dimension where they exist not even having a physical body. They exist as the actual shape that we're seeing, that you see before you on psychedelics, spinning and morphing and whatever. I could go on for ages, but I don't even know where to carry on. I guess, yeah, and then I guess. What does we do in the middle of all of this? It probably, it stables you out as far as I'm concerned. It gives you the most amount of stable mental space for you to uphold all incoming thoughts. I guess I should also, that brings me to real and say this, that the amount of mental download of information you get on such a high amount of psychedelics, it's so much that no matter how much you try and take as much information to record, it just kind of like, it will just fall through your fingers. It's like trying to catch water with your hands. It's really hard. People often do it, psychonauts often do it with a notepad and pen, but you won't really get to, it's just hard, man. It's like trying to catch a bucket of water with your hands. Yeah, it's like trying to catch water that's been poured out of a bucket with nothing but your hands, I should say. What else? You feel a sense of oneness in communication with plants as well. You feel like you can communicate with them through nothing but simple touch and intent. I guess, yeah. And if you're lucky, you should be able to see auras. That's if you're able to like open your eyes and navigate while you're on that such a high level. You will feel like your ego is just completely destroyed. You'll feel like you're dying in the sense that what you knew to be you is melting in your mind. Don't worry, you'll be fine. You'll always be fine. It always reconstructs itself like Boo in Dragon Ball Z when it gets blown apart. Your ego always comes back together. Yeah, yeah. And usually when it comes back together, you should have a sense of appreciation for who you are and how far you've managed to come. And usually in your ego falling apart, it usually ends up stronger. So yeah, but okay, I'm going to stop this video here and I will do another one later. All right.